Welcome to the first in my series of Christopher Nolan movie reviews. He's about to have his latest film, Interstellar, launched in cinemas, so I thought I'd go back and review each one of his movies, starting with this one, Following. Following sees Jeremy Theobald playing the young man who goes around following people. He claims to be a writer, and he essentially gets into a habit of following people. But when he follows the wrong man, someone who kind of cottons on to what he's doing, this man called Cobb confronts him, and it turns out that he's very similar in many ways. He does the same kind of thing. He also breaks into people's houses, and the two of them kind of strike up an uneasy alliance, shall we say. And Cobb then begins to show the young man the tricks of the trade, essentially. Of course, this all leads down to dark roads that the young man eventually learns that he didn't want to go down. Nolan loves to play with the audience's perception in his movies, whether that's through going backwards in time, like with Memento, or whether it's through the use of flashbacks, like with Batman Begins. He does that here too with his debut film. At the beginning of the film, we see the main character just lying on the floor. We see him talking to someone and about what he's doing, how he follows people. And we get a snippet, a flashback of something that's happened to him, and he's choking up a rubber glove, and from first sight it could look like something quite perverse, some kind of weird kinky game that he does when he's following these people. Obviously it's not until later on in the film that we get a different take on that scene, and so our slant on the character, our perception of the character is changed somewhat. Nolan loves to do this. He loves to get us to think and question what it is we think we know about someone. The script for the film isn't quite as polished as Christopher Nolan's later films, and this is never more evident than in the first meeting between Cobb and the young man, or he calls himself Bill at this point. In the hands of better actors, this scene may have been elevated above its station, I guess, but in the hands of these particular actors, the dialogue does feel rather stilted and wooden. Not so much from Jeremy Theobald as the young man. He suits the part well, he does a decent job of it, but Alex Haw, who plays Cobb, is really very wooden, and he doesn't come across very well at all in the film, I don't think. He doesn't handle the dialogue in a way that kind of elevates it above exposition. Lucy Russell is also completely miscast. In the hands of a much better actor, her character could have possibly gone down as one of the best femme fatales to come out of recent British cinema, but in her hands it just comes off as serviceable at best. Nolan shot this film over the course of a year, just shooting on weekends when the actors could get time off work. And as I said, it's very much a student filmmaking mentality, and obviously with budget requirements as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why the film is shot in black and white, as much as people might like to think it's a choice made on the director's behalf for artistic reasons. And that's not to say that it doesn't have artistic merit. It does bring a kind of a rough and ready feel to the film, particularly as we're just following this guy on the streets. But that being said, it does really feel like more of a budgetary concern than anything else. It's not an insult to refer to this as like student filmmaking mentality, as I put it. You got to work with what you got, and at this stage in his career, Nolan didn't have studio funding. He funded this entirely by himself, and with that in mind, this is a really amazing first film, a true independent film, much in the same sense as Kevin Smith's first film, Clerks, that was completely funded by himself. So this is a film shot completely without any studio funding, but that also means there's no studio interference either, which means that Christopher Nolan, the Christopher Nolan of 1998, got to make the film that he wanted to make, which means it's structured in the way that he wanted it structured, which is a very good thing, because that is essentially the strongest aspect of this film. The structure of the film really messes with your head. You're kind of trying to piece the puzzle together. All these pieces are just flying everywhere, and you're looking back and you're thinking, hang about, where does that sit in relation to that? But if you check out the DVD, you can actually watch it in chronological order, so it does essentially make sense. But in the way that Nolan structured it, as he does with his second film, Memento, messes with your perception of things. It makes you question what you're seeing, whether what you're seeing is actually what you're seeing, and it questions kind of the meaning basically that comes out of those scenes in different ways when you watch them back a second time. One of the downsides of this is that maybe the film is a little bit too plot heavy, and there's maybe not enough character development as I would have liked. For example, the main character, the young man, or Bill, whatever we want to call him, we know that he's, other than knowing that he's a little sad and pathetic, we don't really get much more about him as a person. Where has he come from? Why has he arrived at this point in his life? What is it that makes him tick? It's also interesting to note the similarities that this film shares with Nolan's later film, Inception. This could almost be a blueprint for that film, because if you look at two characters, but one in this film and one in that film, they're both called Cobb, and Cobb in Inception, he goes into someone's head and he plants an idea into that person's head, and we learn in this film, only when we get to the end, that that's what the Cobb of following has also been doing throughout the film. He's manipulating Bill, he's manipulating the young man, and it's not until we get to the end of the film that we see that, and he's been planting ideas into his head, manipulating him, getting him to act in the way that he wants him to act, getting him to come to the conclusions that he wants him to come to, so that he behaves in the way that he wants him to. And it really is a precursor to Nolan's Inception. Overall, Following is a really fine debut, and if this had much more money behind it, we would have got, well, Inception. So I really can't grumble. It's not without its issues, as I've said, mainly the acting and budgetary reasons, really. But I would have loved to have seen this film with an all-star cast, and I'd love to see like a bigger budget version of it. It's a cracking debut, and I give it a 7 out of 10. So, have you seen Following? If so, comment below and let me know what you thought about it. Do you think the film could be improved with a bigger budget, or do you like it just the way it is? Until next time, thanks for watching.